Good day, everyone. My name is Srinivas Rao. Most people call me MSR. And as you can see, I'm a fairly old guy. And I'm going to talk to you today about a theme which may appear a little different from what you're hearing in and around you. Right? So, as you know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. And in the middle of the pandemic, there have been lives lost. Many people have had severe impact on their economic livelihood, etc. So I'm not going to really wanting to talk to you about that doom and gloom. I'm going to talk to you about something which may appear a little contrarian, about the fact that somehow there seems to be some correlation between an economic recession or a pandemic and a burst of entrepreneurial activity. Right. So my theme today is going to be around, should be I be an entrepreneur in the middle of the pandemic? And I'm going to talk to you about a few things for you to reflect on, to ruminate over as you potentially explore whether you want to become an entrepreneur. Right. So let's just spend a minute and look around us. Right. So when you think about it, everywhere you're seeing a whole lot of new businesses or existing businesses which have pivoted to doing things which they did not do prior to the pandemic. Right. So think of the number of people who are making masks. Think of the number of people who are now making sanitizers. Think of the number of entities which are now making ventilators or making personal protective equipment. None of this was a significant business prior to let's say February, March of this year. Right. So it just goes back to reinforce what I was saying, that sometimes a crisis brings tremendous opportunity. Right? Let's spend a minute looking back at what happened in 2008 in the economic recession which happened that year due to the collapse of Wall Street. Right? So a number of companies which have become household names and most of which you are now carrying on your phone, for example, Uber or Slack or Pinterest, right? All of them started in and around the 2008 economic recession. Let's look at some data from India. So if you look at India, we had 16,487 companies getting registered in the Ministry of Company Affairs website in July. Right, this number is the highest since July, since January 2013, almost 8 years ago. Right, and it's not just a one-off, where we had 16,487 companies. The months of August, September, and October, for 3 consecutive months, we've had 16,000 companies plus getting registered. And now, if you were to compare with the same period last year we had between 9,000 to 10,000 companies getting registered during the same period, uh, August, September, October. All this tells you is basically that a lot many more people are turning entrepreneurs, delivering products, services, and trying to build businesses in the middle of this pandemic. Right? So essentially, it goes back to what I said, which is potentially this is an opportunity for you to think about becoming an entrepreneur. So what I'm going to do now is, I've been an entrepreneur twice over, and I've worked for 33 years. I told you, remember in the beginning, I was an old guy. So I worked for 12 years as a professional and then 21 years as an entrepreneur, right? So I'm going to talk to you about a few things which hopefully will give you some guidance, some insights about some questions which you will be grappling with as you potentially explore whether you want to become an entrepreneur, right? So let me help you with this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm an ardent cricket fan. Okay, uh, apart from what I do at work, the other thing I do the most is think, sleep, dream, and watch cricket. Okay, so I have put together an entrepreneur's 11. Okay, so basically it's 11 statements. Okay, consisting of a top order, a middle order, a lower middle order, and the tail enders. 11 statements around entrepreneurship, and you should give yourself a +1 for everything for which you say yes, and obviously a 0 for something which you say no. Right? And the intent is, once I walk through the 11 statements, for you will be able to, I think, be able to visualize whether potentially you could become an entrepreneur. Okay, so let's start with the first one. My opening batsman, the guy who faces the first ball, is a statement which goes, I like winning and I like challenging myself. So entrepreneurs, in their DNA, is all about winning, right? Entrepreneurs don't like to come second. They like to come first. They like to win. They have a very strong winner's mentality, and they like to challenge themselves. Right? My non-striking opening batsman is number two. I like to prove others wrong when they say something can't be won, something can't be done. Right? So essentially, as I said, entrepreneurship is about challenging yourself, challenging others, and proving them wrong. And basically, you have this, you might call it kida within you, saying, "Kuch karna hai, kuch pana hai, kuch banana hai, kuch banna hai." Right. So that's number two. Right. My middle order, my number three is I'm good at figuring out challenges, and I see challenges as opportunities. Right? Entrepreneurship is all about figuring out how to overcome challenges. Right? So think about entrepreneurship as a war which you have to win. Right? And anyone who studied war history at some length will understand a few things. One, that a war has many battles, big and small. And what's important when you want to win a war is sometimes you lose some battles, right? What's really important is winning the bigger and the more consequential battles. And whenever you lose a small battle, forget about it, learn some lessons from it, dust it off, get up the next day and go back and fight again. Right? That's about entrepreneurship. Right. Number four, right? My Tendulkar, if you will, right? Or Kohli now, right? I am not afraid of failure, and I don't want to die wondering why I did not try something, right? So as I said, entrepreneurship sometimes is a rocky road. It is strewn with obstacles. You have to overcome those. And if the answer to this question is yes, give yourself a one, right? My number five is when I see things around me which make me angry, my first thought is what can I do about it? So let me tell you a story, right? This is about Uber, right? The guy who built Uber, he used to live in New York, and he found that getting a cab was becoming a challenge increasingly, and so he said, "Listen, I think there's an opportunity to resolve this issue." So he built out a cab hailing service, which we all know as Uber. Right? So that's number five. My number six, right? Who's possibly an all-rounder, right? I mean, he knows how to bat, he knows how to bowl, and obviously, hopefully, he's a good fielder too, right? Is I like meeting people and convincing them about my ideas. See, end of the day, entrepreneurship to some extent is all about being persuasive, about selling the power of your dreams, being able to to people to convince them about the beauty and the power of your idea, be it a product or a service. So you could be an introvert, you could be an extrovert, or you could be an ambivert. But to some extent, you have to be able to like to meet people and to be able to convince them about what you're doing. Right? Next up, number seven. I know several friends who run their own successful businesses, and if they can, so can I. Right? So here, think about this. This is about role models, right? So think about two people who came from Chandigarh, the Bansals, Sachin and Bini. They started Flipkart in about 2007, and then because of their success, a whole lot of others said, "Listen, if these guys can do it, we can do it too." Step back about 40 years when a company called Infosys was set up in a suburb of Bangalore called Koramangala, and they, ordinary middle class guys, set up that company, and then over a period of time, based on buoyed by their success, a whole lot of other entrepreneurs set up IT businesses. Okay. Coming in now to the lower order, right? Members of my own family run their business. Right? So think about this. So if you have somebody in your family, immediate family, who's run a business, you maybe have sat with them. They've told you stories about their business, about their successes and failures, and you've taken away many lessons. So if your answer to this question is yes, then please give yourself a plus one. Now getting into numbers 9, 10, and 11. I am a restless person, and I can't wait to experiment with ideas, uh, other which either I come up with or the others come up with. So entrepreneurs by nature have to be restless, right? They can't be passive. They have to be constantly thinking of iterating, of trying to do new things. of solving problems which have not been solved by others, and keep experimenting. Right? Experimenting is the nature of entrepreneurship. So that's number 9. Number 10, I like being my own boss. Think of how many people you know who have told you, listen, I don't enjoy what I'm doing because the nature of the job is boring. Second is I have a boss who knows probably less than I do. And if I were to trade places with the boss, I'd probably do a much better job than he does, right? And so on. So I think has to be a strong sense of self-belief, a strong sense of commitment, a strong sense of passion if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So if the answer to this question, I like being my own boss, is yes, give yourself a 1. So now we've got to the last man, number 11. I have the urge to stand on my own and I prove that I can build something from ground up, right? So entrepreneurs do things because they want to be able to prove to themselves and to the world that they can do this. While they know it is hard, they can figure out how this can be done, and they want to build, get themselves some name, some fame, and hopefully some money as well during the journey, right? So if you've given yourself 8 plus, meaning I've got 11 statements and I'm just going to put them up for you for a second, right? Just so you see, right? Those statements. Can you see them now? So I have the 11 statements here. I'll just pause for 30 seconds. So you can see those 11 statements. If you've got 8 or more, I think you are potentially on the path to becoming an entrepreneur, right? So moving on, let's now talk about risks, right? Now, so anyone who tells you that there are no risks in entrepreneurship is not being honest, right? And similarly, now the way I respond to that is, in a job you have risk, right? And what are the risks in a job? I've talked about some of those earlier. You are in a job where the job is not particularly entertaining, it's boring, and you're not learning anything new. You almost feel like you're in a rut, right? So that's the risk of a job, right? There's no flexibility, there's no autonomy. In an entrepreneurial journey, there are risks, right? What are the risks? You could potentially have a financial, impact if things don't go well. You could lose whatever you invested in, either your own money or others' money which you've taken to build your enterprise. You also have the potential stigma of failure. Unfortunately, in India, we still don't have a very favorable attitude to entrepreneurs who've tried and failed. My response to that is it's better to try and die than not try at all, or better not to die wondering, right? So entrepreneurs never die wondering, right? So that's where I'm coming from, right? So I think all in all, you have to take a call. And as I said, right, so if you take my example, I told you I worked for 33 years, 12 years I worked as a professional. And then, one day I woke up and said, listen, it's now or never. I have to take the plunge and I should go out and figure out, what opportunities I can pursue as an entrepreneur, right? So that's really about potential risks. I'm now going to draw your attention to something else, right? So entrepreneurship, as I said, sometimes can be lonely, and I'm going to draw on an African proverb. It says, "It takes a village to raise a child," right? Now, what does that mean? It means that you need a lot of support to have a successful entrepreneurial journey, right? You need an ecosystem. You need the government. You need the financing institutions. You need fellow entrepreneurs. You need academic institutions. You need, business support organizations. All of them to support you in your journey, right? Otherwise, it's hard, right? And there are very few successful entrepreneurs who will tell you, listen, I did this on my own and I had no support from everybody else, right? So I want to just draw your attention to one example I want to give you, which is about the work we are doing at GAME. So we're building an accelerator program in Ludhiana, and basically the theme of the program is Sada Karobar Punjab Dishan. Ludhiana is a thriving industrial city. It has been referred to as the Manchester of the East. What we are doing is working with government, industry associations, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship development organizations, banks, to really accelerate the growth of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and entrepreneurs themselves in Ludhiana. I do hope you get inspired by what we are doing in Ludhiana, and using the framework I've given you of the entrepreneurial 11 questions, you will go out and become an entrepreneur yourself. So good luck. To all of you, thank you for your time, and I do hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.